Hey, I hope everybody's doing well today. Today should be a fun video. I at least found it a fun video. Today we're going to talk about the Ampapa D1 amplifier. It's a pretty cool product, honestly, it really is. Please sit back, relax, and we'll get going on this video. So what is the Duke Ampapa D1? I'm going to call it the Ampapa D1. Ampapa appears to be a brand within the Duke, Nobe Sound, Little Bear family of companies. I think it is their trying to go upscale brand name, and that's fine. This is a bit of an upscale product. Anyway, the D1 is a Class D amplifier with a really cool digital display on it. It sells for $200. Now, I'll put specs up here. Power ratings are always a bit exaggerated. They don't tell you what power supply it's with. They don't tell you what THD. I think with the 48 volt 5 amp power supply it's supplied with, legitimately you're going to get 80 watts into 8 ohms. It had no trouble driving anything I connected to it. And you know, it is what it is, and it sounds pretty good. Now, what they didn't mention was, now it does use the Texas Instruments TPA 3255 chip, but they didn't, I couldn't find anywhere in the literature or online whether or not it had the PFFB post filter feedback circuit, but I'm going to assume it does. It has a really good sound character, and I think at this point everybody's doing that. So I'm going to assume it has it. If I find out different, I'll put it down here, but I'm just going to assume it does. Anyway, it's got some really cool stuff in it. Well, the Ampapa D1 is actually a kind of an evolution of the Duke A5 and A5 Pro amplifiers we liked so much. Those are really, really good. And $200, this thing is a total steal. Like I mentioned, it is a TPA 3255 amp chip. It includes a high pass filter from 30 hertz to 200 hertz, and it uses a 12 dB per octave slope on it, which I think is really interesting that they actually mentioned that. That means some time and effort was put into the design. So it has a pre-out you can go to a powered sub with, and that's how I used it on my desk, and we'll talk about that in a little later. It does have full Bluetooth and all of the codecs and everything else, and it does have swappable op amps. Now, it comes with any 5532s. When we go inside, because we're going to look at the front, the back, the sides, all the other stuff, and go inside because it's really easy. They made it super easy. You can just lift the top up, if I can get my finger under there. So that's really nice. And talk about swapping op amps on it. Now, one of the things I found interesting was it does use a brand called Sagami inductors. Now, those are really good coils. It also uses, this power supply is also actually a gallium nitride power supply, so high-speed switching, very quiet. I noticed no noise whatever. And this thing has some good strong output, and we'll talk more about that in the summary and everything else. So let's do this. Let's take a look at the front. Let's take a look at the back. We'll go inside. We'll talk about swapping op amps and what op amps I thought worked well. I'll tell you how I tested it. I'll give you my final thoughts and we'll wrap it up. I don't normally do stuff like this, but I was really impressed with the way this product was packaged, and I thought I'd show you by recreating the unboxing. As you can see, really nice graphics, so forth. You flip that lid open, and then you get a cleaning cloth because there's the Lexan cover on the top to get to the op amps. You get a little certificate, manual, little Ampapa marketing material, and then the unit itself, which is really quite impressive. And of course, we're going to continue with the review. So that's there. And then here you get all your accessories, power supply, and I mean, it's very nicely packaged. Power supply, Bluetooth antenna, remote control, everything in the box, and it shows you exactly what's on there. Anyway, I was so impressed with that, I thought I'd show you that real quick. Well, here we are looking at the front panel of the Duke Ampapa D1. I'm going to power it up, and I'm going to use the remote control, which has some nice features on it. It really does. It's convenient to use. And we're going to go ahead and power it up. Now, what you can't see is blue lights came on inside. Now, I had it last set to, well, hopefully you can see that VU meter easily. Now, what I'm going to do is use the remote control. There's a button here that allows me to access, it's on the bottom of the remote, the menuing system. As you can see here, we've got input, and then I have a choice of RCA, TRS, it's actually balanced, or Bluetooth, and then we go back around to RCA. Now, if I hit the menu button again, it brings me back out to the VU meter, so I'm going to go over here, and we're going to go to settings. Now, this gives me a bunch of different settings: tone control, lights, style of the VU meter. Let's do that real quick and have some fun with it. So we can do different styles of VU meter should we want to. Let's say we want to do the amber one, and there we go. So again, you have some different settings available to you. And I think this is actually a nice thing. I'm going to go ahead and change VU meters again. If you want to, you got the blue, or you can have the spectrum analyzer bars. You're not going to see much with that anyway. Or you can have just a standard display where it'll show source and volume and bass and treble controls. Now, on the remote control, there are separate bass and treble controls. T, B for bass and treble. So let's go back out to the menu and return back out to the main display. And then if I hit those buttons, bass and treble, you'll see bass change. If I go up with the treble, treble will change. So it actually is pretty intuitive and pretty simple to use. I love the display. So anyway, let's take a look at the back now, and we'll dig around inside and play with op amps. Well, here we are looking at the back of the D1, and I got to tell you, I'm quite impressed with it. Power socket here, it takes 24 volts to 48 volt power supply. It does come with a 48 volt 5 amp power supply, which I think is plenty. I must mention that they have really upped their game on the quality of the binding post they're putting on this particular product. This is very much way better than what they used to include. Does have a pre-out on a 3.5 millimeter. I use a 3.5 millimeter to RCA adapter, and then I run that line into my subwoofer. Does have a 12 volt trigger in. We've got line in on RCA. It's still got the little gizmos on it to cover them up. So line in if you want to run the CD player like I do, or you want to run a turntable with a phono preamp. It's got balanced in. That's really, really interesting. If you have a DAC with a balanced output, you could run into this that way if you want to. Our Bluetooth antenna right here, and then our high pass adjusting knob right here, and it's anywhere from 30 hertz to 200. Really, really nice feature. And well, here we are on the inside of the D1. So let's flip this open. I love the way Duke has done this, and don't peel the sticker off. It holds that little piece of glass, and it is actual glass in place. So inside you'll see Rubicon capacitors, you'll see an Ampapa branded circuit board, and then these are the Sagma inductors that are really cool, flat wound coils. Really, really interesting. Now, it may be a little tough to see. Let me see if I can get a little better angle at it by holding this up. Right in here is where you change the colors of the RGB, and I'll take insert a picture of what it all looks like lit up with some variety of different colors. Now, it came with any 5532 op amps, sorry, they're over here. And I have popped those out already, and I put in Texas Instruments OPA 1656s, and I'm very well pleased with that. I would also consider the NOS Burr Brown 2134s. That's a really good chip in an amp, but I thought I'd try the 1656s. Now, one issue. If you're thinking about doing SX 52s, they will not fit. There's not enough room. If you want to do Sparkos, there is room 3602s, but here's the deal. Can I recommend you spend 80 or 100 bucks on op amps to go into a $200 amplifier? I don't know that I can. I'm not sure you're going to hear that much of a difference. I would say Sparkos and those kind of high-end op amps like, Burson and things like that, I would save those for your DAC or preamp, because that's where I think you're going to hear it most. Anyway, I'm pleased with the I'm pleased with the OPA 1656s. I also thought that the 2134s sounded really good, but remember, don't go swapping op amps for at least 4 to 6 months. Get used to the sound. It's really, really important to do. And also, don't forget to get yourself a little IC chip extractor. And I highly recommend that you consider getting the Dip 8 little sockets. Here, I'll show you what one looks like. So the chip mounts in this little Dip 8 socket, and then this has much more robust pins on it than any of the chips do. So if you're going to change op amps frequently, consider getting that. Anyway, that's a look inside. Very impressive, really well laid out. I like this unit a lot. Well, as you can see from the closer look we took at it, this thing's really well designed. It's very well thought out. The high pass filter, and then, you know, using 12 dB per octave slopes. No one talks about that. They, oh, we have a high pass filter, but they never tell you any of the specifics. I think it's important that they did that. And I think with the Ampapa brand, Duke is trying to raise their game a little bit, and we've seen that from some other manufacturers too. I think the fun-fi category is going to get really, really interesting as these guys start to move a little bit upscale. Yes, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but I think you're going to get premium build quality, premium components, and really well thought out designs. And I think that's what this piece is. We'll talk about sound and everything in just a second. So how did I test it? Well, for a lot of the testing, I used tons of different music, but I primarily relied on my Old Guy Hi-Fi Test Tracks Volume 2 playlist. There will be a title and co-buzz link, and if I can do it, because I promised it once before, if I can do it and create a Spotify version of it, of that playlist, I will. All of those will be linked in the video description for you to check out. Please check it out. So as I used it on my desktop, I had it on my sound solver rack, and as you saw in the B-roll, I was using it with a Duke DAC Q11, which is still one of my favorites, especially on the AKM side. I had the signal running out of my computer. I was streaming from either Artivana, Tidal, or the Qobuz apps themselves into the Duke Audio U2 Pro 2025 edition little DDC reclocker. That's a cool piece. I did a full-blown video on it. You will see that very shortly, I promise. Then I used my Philharmonic True Mini monitors, which you'll see on my desktop. These are my everyday, I rely on these things like crazy. They're some of the best I've ever heard. And then also too, I set it up in the big room as a kind of a standalone little system. I used the ELAC DB53s. Again, I used the DAC Q11. I used the Cambridge MXN streamer, and that was a great source. And I was running the Cambridge directly into, via SPDIF, into the DAC Q11 and then into the D1. And that was a really good combination. It sounded quite good on those ELACs. They're not super hard to drive, but this has a really good sound quality. And we'll talk a bit more about that in just a second. Well, before I give a summary of my thoughts, I thought I'd start to include a kind of a new segment in the videos, and it's kind of who's this product for kind of a category. And I want to try to get across the best applications for this, not necessarily, you know, exactly who it's for, but how would you use it if you wanted to, and what kind of systems would it work really well in. And so that's going to be a new segment in a lot of my videos coming up. So I think this product's for someone who's an enthusiastic listener but has a moderate budget or a second system or a bedroom system, and they don't want to spend a ton of money. You know, this Class D amplifier's got plenty of power, and you know, it supports a lot of different inputs and outputs, so you could do a lot of different stuff with it. The pre-out, the sub-out, you know, the high-pass filter stuff, that's wonderful, especially in a secondary system where you don't want the subwoofer booming. You can adjust it. Maybe you've got a smaller pair of speakers, you know, that don't go super low, and you want to roll those off so it hands off to the subwoofer seamlessly. I think that is, I think it is perfect for that type of application. Yes, you could put it in a regular standalone system, as long as you have some realistic expectations of what it can do. You're not going to plug this into the Magnapan LRSs. You're not going to plug this into a big tower pair of speakers. It's just not going to have that level of performance. But for moderate to medium price, you know, like the Q Acoustics 3030Cs, I think this would run those fine. I didn't do that, but my guess is, knowing those speakers as well as I do, that would be a nice combination. So I think also too, this is a good product for someone who wants to tinker. I mean, swapping op amps could be a ton of fun. Now, here's the thing. Please, before you even consider swapping the op amps, listen to the amplifier for 4, 5, 6 months. You got to get used to the sound of it before you make a change. Otherwise, you won't know if that change had a positive and or negative effect on the sound quality of the unit. So please, don't just rush out and swap op amps. Take some time, listen to it, get used to the sound, understand it really well, and then you swap op amps. Now remember, you only want to change one thing at a time in your system, because if you change more than one thing, you'll never know which change had the effect. So again, for someone who likes to tinker, kind of like me, this is a fun piece. They make it really easy to get at everything. I think that's wonderful. I think too, this would be a good setup for as an amplifier with a nice little pair of bookshelf speakers as a good sound bar replacement. Again, because You can come out of your TV optical, or depending on the DAC you have, you could come out of your TV on HDMI eARC into the DAC, and from the DAC into the amplifier, and then out to a good pair of speakers, a nice little, it doesn't have to be expensive, nice little modest pair of speakers, and you'll have an incredible soundbar replacement. Plus you'll pick up the Bluetooth, plus you'll pick up, if you ever want to add a subwoofer to that system. I'll tell you a story. Back in the day in the 80s, when we first started selling big 3-gun rear projector TVs, the big massive ones, the 400 or 500 pound 65-inch, that had a mirror in the back and a Fresnel lens and all that, and we had what was called EDTV, or extended definition. Because back in those days, all we had was 480i TV. That was NTSC, or the National Television something code. And so EDTV upscaled 480i to 750i. Ooh. And we called it extended definition. Anyway, we used to take those TVs, they had their own speaker systems in them, and we just plug a subwoofer into them, and people went crazy. It sounded really good. So if you want to do that, great little amp for soundbar replacement, pair it with a good little set of small bookshelf speakers. Again, you can run the optical out of your TV or HDMI eARC into a DAC that has those, the HDMI eARC input, and then you're done. You've got a great soundbar replacement. If you ever want to, you can add a little subwoofer to it. And I think that would be a great combination. So this product is really targeted toward kind of hobbyists for the op-amp swapping, and also someone who's looking to build a good performing system and a reasonably high performance system for not a lot of money. So that's where the Duke Ampapa D1 fits in, maybe in your life. So what's my take on the Duke Ampapa D1? As I said, I think, and it's not just Duke, there are a number of the Fun-Fi category products that are really stepping up their game for sure. We've seen some real cool stuff recently. I think this unit has a very clean, very balanced sound. And honestly, I think there's a little emphasis on warmth and smoothness. It doesn't have, listen, the Class D amplifiers, especially from 3 or 4 years ago, have improved so much sonically. I think a big one is that post-filter feedback circuitry from TI. I've heard some Infineon chip units that are quite good. This one is really quite good. I think Duke Ampapa has kind of tuned it to have a little bit of that warmth sound. It doesn't have any of that kind of harshness that sometimes an inexpensive Class D amplifier can have. This doesn't have it at all. And of course, you can change all of that the minute you start swapping op amps. Now, the tone controls, I think, add some flexibility, a lot of flexibility. And I think the high pass filter and, having that variable high pass filter at 12 dB per octave, I think that's a real plus. I really enjoy that. And having the connection ability is really nice. This thing, it's got RCA, it's got TRS, it's got Bluetooth with aptX HD. It can handle a bunch of different stuff. You can plug in a turntable with its own built-in phono preamp if you want to, or like I do on my desktop, use it with a CD player. I just think it sounds really good. On the Philharmonics, it was clean and very nicely detailed, but a little bit of warmth. The Philharmonics are pretty revealing speaker. For their size and price, they're a killer. They're absolutely one of the best desktop speakers I've ever heard. Actually, they're really good on anything. I've had them on stands in the big room in conjunction with a subwoofer because they don't make a ton of bass. But with those, I hear a lot of flaws and stuff with those speakers. They're that revealing. I didn't detect any of that with the D1. I thought this had a good sound character. I thought it had good power. It had plenty of dynamics. I thought it had a good rhythm to it. I didn't think that it was, anything was falling behind. Everything I was listening to sounded good. Now, when I put it in the big room on the ELACs, those are a good bass speaker, and I didn't run a subwoofer with them, excuse me. And that was a really good sound. Using the MXN10 as the streaming source into the Duke DAC Q11 into the Ampapa D1 with those ELAC DB53s, that was a great little system. And I'm thinking about grabbing that system and putting it upstairs in one of the bedrooms where my wife likes to go and sit and sew and read and things like that, to give her something to play with, and she can Bluetooth in with her phone and all that other stuff. So it's a really good, really well thought out, really well constructed, really kind of a premium product in this kind of Fun-Fi category. At $200, I think it's a total steal. And I think you'll be really, really happy with it. Now, again, let me reiterate, don't go swapping op amps right away. Wait 4 to 6 months, get used to the sound of it, then swap the op amps, and then you'll know if they made a difference. Anyway, those are my final thoughts on the Duke Audio / Ampapa D1 amplifier. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully be willing to give me a like and a subscribe. Hopefully be willing to ring the bell to get notified next time I put out a video. Your subscription does count, and I'd like to thank everybody, especially my channel members and my current subscribers, for helping us get through 30,000 subscribers just recently. It's a wonderful and humbling experience. Thanks to all of you. As I mentioned, there will be a link to the Old Guy Hi-Fi Test Tracks Volume 2 playlist in the video description. In the spirit of full disclosure, there will be an affiliate link from Amazon for the Duke Ampapa D1 if you are so interested in purchasing one. I would appreciate you using that. Your support counts a lot toward helping defray the cost of running the channel. There will also be a membership link in the pinned comment and video description. There's some other additional affiliate links in the video description. You guys know the drill on that by now. There is a link to the community post playlist. Please check it out. I just added some playlists to it, and there's some great music there anyway. Let me know your thoughts. Where are you at? Are you looking for something like this? I was completely impressed with this. I really was. I've had a couple of really good of these, kind of fun fi categories. And they're actually moving into the mid-fi category. Honestly, I would probably pick this or some of the other products I've recently done over like an entry-level Yamaha integrated amplifier, anything from Pioneer or Sony, even for twice the money. I think this is a better product. I think it sounds good. It's well thought out. It's well executed. It's compact, easy to live with. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. Anyway, I think I've covered all the bases on this. My name is Ed Homewood. This is I forgot to say, please like, please subscribe, comment, follow me on Instagram. This is Ed Homewood, and this is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. Please take some time today, put on the music you love, and just sit back and relax. Thanks so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day.